Good Saturday, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center as we have several tornado warnings in play in the Texas Panhandle. A pretty significant severe weather event. So I wanted to come on, cut in, let you know about what's happening in this area because we're having the potential for some large and destructive tornadoes to occur here. So I really want to get down to it. It's a pretty rural area, and that's why this moderate risk situation isn't necessarily warranting coverage where we would go more long form here per se because of it being in such an isolated area overall. But there are some cities out here, and if these storms hit the wrong areas, we can have some big time problems. Unfortunately, I know we just had a tornado, it seems, go over across an interstate there into toward Texas, into toward the Texas Panhandle. So let's go ahead and go over to one of our other radars where we're zooming in on the action here this afternoon, this evening, and you're going to see here south of Amarillo, we're really watching something pretty carefully. We've had a history of some tornadic action, multiple storm chasers reporting via social media earlier there, 4 miles west of the community of Happy, of what appeared to be a large tornado there, and then up to the north, a large wedge tornado there in Randall County, Texas. So a PDS warning does continue now to 4:30 Central Time for this area, and we're really seeing that circulation here. And if we were to see this here stay pretty tight, we may get a tornado emergency even as we get toward a city. I know the criteria for a tornado emergency is being met, it seems, by the destructive nature of the winds, but being such a rural area, they've held off on issuing that where things are at the highest level because it's in such a sparsely populated area. But we have to watch for the community of Washburn here for this tornado to move a little bit closer. So we really want people to be very cautious. This is a national type event here in terms of it requiring coverage of it being a national story. So again, that circulation here, we're looking toward the southeast of Lake Tanglewood, it looks like. A confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado located there, not too far away from Canyon, 12 miles to the east, in fact. This tornado is moving northeast at 35 miles an hour, so this is a particularly dangerous situation. You are being urged, those people in that area are being urged, if you have relatives in that area, you want to go ahead and urge them to take cover now. This is a life-threatening situation where flying debris may be deadly to those caught without shelter. Mobile homes will be destroyed. Considerable damage to homes, businesses, vehicles is likely, and complete destruction is possible. Lake Tanglewood, Washburn, it looks like. We also have a canyon community in there as well that we're really watching. So considerable damage tag in this, as you would expect. You see the circulation here. I'll back this up a little bit, and you'll be able to see how things have been holding together. To some extent, it was a little bit stronger down toward the south earlier as we were getting a really, really strong signature on it. As we look back here, you'll be able to see that debris signature as it was so significant across the interstate. But again, a very rural area, as you'll see, but you have to worry about, unfortunately, some vehicles there in that area on the interstate there. We're talking, in fact, I-27. So that really significant debris signature. You see it kind of become less organized here, but we have to watch for some reorganization as we get toward the north here because we are actually heading toward an area with more homes maybe here in the path of this as we get toward Washburn over the next little bit. Again, we're in Texas, we're talking. I know I normally cover North Florida and South Georgia, but we're jumping on because of the nature of the destructive tornado potential this afternoon into the early evening. Only about a 4-hour window from about 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time. We're going to have this discrete storm action here, and we're going to really just have to watch for these circulations to evolve in that type of nature. So we have to just be very cautious this afternoon, this early evening. I'll go ahead and go to the broad perspective right now in our other radar system. We have that in our toolkit here. You can see we're looking toward the south of Amarillo with these pink polygons here. These are indicative of confirmed tornadoes. So we'll go ahead and write these down. This tornado warning to the north is for the large tornado. We're talking about northwestern Armstrong and northeastern Randall counties in Texas until 4:30 Central Time. The second pink polygon here is indicative of one for central Swisher County where emergency management's confirmed a tornado 4 miles east of Happy, so we're not too far away from the other tornadic hit area there. And then we have another tornado warning to the south, a confirmed tornado as we're looking 7 miles northeast of Hart. that's moving northeast at 30 miles an hour. So just really have to be careful here because of the environment. I know we had the dry line situation evolve here, and that always tends to favor some of this action for at least a little bit, unfortunately. And today, the higher end tornado potential has been there. We'll take off the watch right now. We'll take off our mesoscale discussions, and we'll put on our tornado risk area. As you can see, we still have some more time frame here to get through as we're looking toward Pampa, towards Childress here. Childress and Pampa are going to be watching this action as it gets closer to the Oklahoma border. Not as significant of a concern, but there is still a strong tornado concern here as we get just into Oklahoma a little bit before things start to break down pretty quickly. In fact, as we're losing that instability here overall, that more favorable storm environment. But right now, let's go ahead and pop on some other parameters. We're going to say here our temperatures. First off, you can see some of those warmer temperatures trying to get on in. And then our significant tornado parameter, this is very, very high overall. And getting that mixed in here with some energy can be problematic, and it has proven problematic as you would anticipate here in toward the Texas Panhandle on this Saturday, March the 13th. I see we just got an update on a tornado warning there, Armstrong and Randall, continuing there till 4:45. So let me go ahead and check some other systems. I know we have a couple different radars we can go between. And let's see which one we're talking about here, because Armstrong and Randall, we have some different warnings in play. This is for an observed tornado, but not a large tornado necessarily at the moment. I think it's for that storm, yeah, to the south here that's moving out of the Lubbock jurisdiction into the Amarillo National Weather Service jurisdiction area. So let's go ahead, pop up our other radar tool right now. You can see here that circulation really getting tight here. Again, luckily pretty rural areas, but we have 4 tornado warning polygons, all 4 confirmed tornadoes right now. All 4 confirmed tornadoes. We're talking about 3, it looks like, on the ground here as of the latest information. So we want people to be taking the situation seriously on this Saturday. I know we had the tornado down toward Hart. We had winds there 87 miles an hour, in fact, being indicated here. So not great in toward these relatively rural areas, but you see the city down here that kind of loads on into the system. So that's always something you have to be concerned with. This is something that you kind of see sometimes in Kansas as well, for instance, where you have these very sparsely populated areas, but then when you get a city hit, just speaking of situations here in the past, thinking back, Greensburg, Kansas, really comes to mind in a situation where you get a city unfortunately hit and you have death and destruction. So that's why we just have to be very cautious here in this type of environment. So as we get here towards Swisher County, Texas right now, you see the circulation. We have winds 65 one way, then we have going toward the radar in the green 30, 60 other ways. That gives you an indication of winds about 100 miles an hour trying to reach the surface, not too far away from that community of Happy. Just on the other side of things, it looks like, compared to the other storm, which has been more organized overall, it's not maybe as organized as it was on the last frame as we go between some of our different tools, but we're having very strong winds being indicated on the radar here. So 84 miles an hour, 86 miles an hour, and then you see off toward the east 70, but right now it's not together. But if these winds come back together, that's when you have a more significant tornado occurring. But we still definitely could be having a tornadic situation here, as being indicated by the National Weather Service and some of the spotters. You kind of see some lofted debris, it looks like, as we're kind of comparing. This is a little bit ahead, so definitely could be a tornado right in here as we're moving. It looks like from parts of Randall County into Ward, an area here not far away from Amarillo, but just not into Ward Amarillo itself. We're talking about Armstrong County. So confirmed, Lord, an extremely dangerous tornado occurring there, a particularly dangerous situation, as you would expect, really, as we've seen the history of this be so significant. But just going to kind of bounce around a little. You can see this debris area earlier. This was really, really nasty looking near the interstate. So that always raises our level of concern, even though really not seeing much in the way of excellence there with population. It's really sparsely populated. So that's just kind of giving you the lay of the land at least. But still, some people being impacted as we go back to the live action. You can see we have some hail potential as well in here with these blacks showing up on the reflectivity. You can see really getting high at about 70 dBZs in fact. So that the blacks, the purples, really telling the story here this afternoon as we're looking toward Texas. We're going to go back over toward our rotation tracker now as we continue to go ahead and kind of get a gauge for the situation. I'll take some of our other information off real quick so we can get a better look at things as we continue with this live coverage right now. You do see we had that circulation so tight near the interstate I-27 there, a really rural area though. That's what we didn't break in. We did put out a tweet about it here on my Twitter account at CloudCasey, but we didn't break in because it's so rural, but we wanted to go ahead and just talk about the scope of the situation, a little bit of a long form update, and if we had a tornado emergency, of course, we would adjust accordingly. But right now you see the circulation set up in that blue, that light blue. That's indicative of very strong circulation that we've been tracking as we go back to the live ax, and you do see here this circulation again moving from one county into the next here soon, just to the east of Lake Tanglewood. We have to watch for the community of Washburn and maybe here toward Conway, Texas in the next little bit. Claude here, maybe just off toward the east. We have to watch that other storm to the south as well that we're watching with the secondary circulation. I know we even had an indication maybe of something trying to form another tornado in close proximity to the first tornado with something there with the overall structure of things. Didn't really see that as I was looking a moment ago, but we have to just be very cognizant. A tornado watch is in play here, a few of them in fact, but one of them that's more important really because of the strong tornado potential that's within it. It goes in fact here to 9 p.m. Central Time. It's the one here east of Lubbock, the watch for Amarillo, Lubbock area. We're talking more about 6 p.m. Central Time for them, and in Abilene, Odessa, this watch here goes until 10 p.m. Central Time. So just kind of giving that breakdown here as we broaden the view out a little bit more. And then there's a winter component to this as well. This overall scenario, we're seeing that winter component in play as we get up toward Colorado. We're seeing a significant snowfall threat up there. Winter storm warnings in play. Going to be seeing feet of snow in some communities. So a nasty situation for Denver and some surrounding areas. The elevated areas, of course, will be at more risk for this, but even in toward Denver, a lot of snow expected here as we're getting later on in toward that timeline. So just getting some different reports down toward the south as we go back over to our normal radar mode here as you see the different sides of this. The temperature contrast is pretty abrupt as you can tell here from northwest to south. And a report here, a gust report coming in here. 68 to 76 miles an hour over a 3-minute period in Randall County. So that's not what you want to hear really though. Hopefully that's all we're getting in terms of some of these winds though, based on some of the information I've seen and that debris signature. I know we had winds over 100, maybe even worse than that, maybe even some violent type winds, unfortunately, in terms of what could have been occurring though. Hopefully, I'm going to go and check some of my sources behind the scenes. Hopefully we didn't have as many buildings hit as could have been hit here. Based on some of the different things I've seen within the radar images. Luckily, a pretty rural area, as we've talked about here, and that does preclude some of the worst scenarios. I see a little while ago south of Canyon, maybe we had those as possible, according to a Twitter report here, at least looking at some videos. That kind of tells you just the environment so favorable for tornadoes in play here today. Just got to be really careful with those storm chasers out there as well. The storm chasers really have to be aware because it looks like we're starting. Yeah, it looks like we're starting to get this storm to wrap back up again, or at least one of the storms. Let me go ahead and double check here. This may be the other storm that we were tracking toward the south. So let me go ahead and reiterate what is happening here this afternoon. Again, a very dangerous situation toward Texas. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Again, I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center, tracking the nature of the situation, which is a very dangerous one. So we just want people to be cognizant of what is happening. Just making sure all of our streams are going right now here real quick. Making sure we're able to be seen on the Twitter platform. It looks like we are. Just trying to get a good gauge of this. And yeah, we are on here still. Just wanted to double check. So I know periscope can be switching some things around, so we just want to make sure we're still on for everybody here as we check some different things out. As we talked about, things definitely favorable here, and unfortunately things ramping back up, it looks like. And yeah, that storm here to the east of Lake Tanglewood is ramping up, so we may get a tornado emergency here if things really continue to show this trend. And let's go ahead and pop this on here. You see our one radar image, and then our second one's going to see the circulation here. You see the TVS, and then here's a good close up look at things. You see this again east of Lake Tanglewood. You see these winds here come back together. I kind of mentioned that this could come back together as we were seeing toward the south. You saw it kind of, for this one frame here, kind of apart a little bit with the winds one way, winds going the other way, and then you see them come back together, and unfortunately that means considerable damage according to the Weather Service possible there in that Armstrong, Randall County area. So just got to get in the shelter. I talked about all the storm chasers out there. Let's go ahead and see that now. I have that up on our GR Earth computer here. So let's go ahead and go over there. You just see all the chasers out here showing just how big of a weather event this is. It's all these green dots. I'll take off the radar, take off the watches here, even take off the outlines. And you just see all of them converging. So we have to be really careful here with traffic, honestly, here with so many of them in this close proximity. So that can be problematic. I know we've just got to really be careful because there's almost as many people probably close to this storm as chasers as actual people in some cases here in neighborhoods because of it being so sparsely populated overall. So that's something you have to keep in mind as well. But let's go ahead now and switch back on over toward your radar imagery. We see this very dark reflectivity right now northeast of Happy. And then that rotation tracker will tell the story here as we look toward the north with that even stronger area of spin. You see it here east of Lake Tanglewood, a confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado 6 miles south of Washburn, 13 miles west of Claude, moving northeast at 35. And we're going to be watching again for that community of Washburn here. Washburn, Texas. So let me go ahead and check on that because I want to see the population there real quick. Just to kind of give our viewers perspective, we're talking about 120 people, but 120 people could be in danger here in that concentrated area over the next little bit. So that is problematic as this is really ramping up now, and I kind of was afraid it might as we got closer toward that community of Washburn. So you see these winds here, you see the yellow, that's indicative as I go ahead and put my mouse on the screen for that 120 miles an hour one way, 80 the other way, and if we were actually getting all this to translate, that would be winds close to 200 miles an hour, and based on the winds itself, that would maybe make it an EF5, but luckily there's not as many homes out here, so the damage might not reach that in terms of actual survey information, plus we're looking further up, so it's kind of unlikely we'd actually be getting those winds of 200, which is crazy to talk about down to the surface, but still winds there over 150 definitely could be occurring, causing some big time problems as we take that debris here. And that's a good sign actually that we're not seeing this as much as I thought maybe we would as we go between some of our different tools, but this could pop back at any moment, and it could pop out in an area we don't want it to. So we just have to be very cognizant here. You see that spin. We're just going to be paying attention here with this. Again, the wind's very strong, not that far off the ground. We're only 700 feet or so because the radar in Amarillo is just to the north and west here, so it's giving us a good visual on this. You see here as we go between one radar, I have a higher resolution radar of this we can go on as well as we watch this, and you'll be able to kind of get a look at that here as well from that perspective, that vantage point. And you see these winds again so tight, maybe not quite as tight on the latest frame, but we're just going to be watching back and forth here to see how things ramp up, ramp down as we've talked about it. Eventually this could be crossing Interstate 40 here and closer to some communities as we get here near Carson County. We're in Armstrong County right now with this. Again, a confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado on the ground. We'll be watching for that debris, of course, as we've talked about, and you see some of that now showing up a little clearer on this higher resolution version of things It's from 3 or 4 minutes ago, but still a pretty good overall viewpoint on this, as we just got a new warning issued. This will be for a little bit higher population, I think, as we see it. A PDS warning, not a tornado emergency yet. Hopefully we don't get one today, but it's possible if this gets closer, we'll move right into maybe a very highly populated area. So a confirmed noise, an extremely dangerous tornado at 4:20 was located 5 miles south of Washburn, or 11 miles west of Claude, moving northeast at 35 miles an hour. So again, it's important for folks in the path of this to take shelter, get as many walls between you and the outside as possible here. It's very important to do that. So let me go ahead and just pull up some more tornado safety tips. We'll sometimes do this here for our local coverage, but I do also want to pop this up for our overall scenario here as well. We'll get that into our system. I know it's just something we have to watch, and once we get past that, we'll also talk about some other things that we need to get into for next week toward our local area with some severe weather, unfortunately, as we just want to go and give you that earliest heads up as possible. So here's our tornado safety tips. You see a tornado watch and play for those areas in yellow, in that yellow shaded zone, but then a tornado warning means you need to seek shelter inside a sturdy building, get as many walls between you and the outside as possible, and to protect yourself from flying debris, put on a bicycle helmet. So that means a tornado, as with the warning in play, detected by radar, or in some cases, as we've seen right now, spotted on the ground. So I know that new warning there, Armstrong and Carson. We've had Armstrong and Randall as well here with this 5 p.m. Central Time now, with that new alert being issued by the Weather Service in Amarillo. So I'll go ahead and back on over for a moment to our radar imagery as we continue to watch this. We may take a break here if we don't get a tornado emergency, but I think I'm going to keep the stream going right now because of the nature of things. Still could ramp up, as we've discussed, as we've seen here. We have that time frame lasting until about 8 Eastern, 7 Central, with the greatest concern here. So right now, I want to talk about next Wednesday toward our area, and even just toward the southeast in general, with maybe a significant severe weather threat. You see next Wednesday here, a 15% severe weather risk goes all the way from eastern Texas through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, even in the Florida Panhandle, up to Missouri and Illinois, Indiana as well, as it's kind of a barrage zone right now. We have to watch for Alabama, for instance, it seems, based on some of our analogs here with the severe weather threats. So we're a few days out. I mean, we're talking about really 5 days out almost, give or take, depending on exactly when this happens. So we just want to give you that heads up 4 or 5 days in advance here to keep you and your family safe, make sure everybody knows what to do here in case of some severe weather development. So we just want people to go ahead and have a plan toward Alabama, even toward southwest Georgia, for instance, could have some severe weather in about 5 days, 4 or 6 days time. It's a little bit uncertain right now. That's why I'm kind of leaving that time frame up in the air a little here, but we're going to continue to watch for that. Just make sure you have a severe weather plan. You know where to go in case of a tornado moving toward your community here, as this risk could get expanded. Some type of risk probably will get expanded eventually here towards South Georgia and North Central, Northeast, and especially the Big Bend of Florida here as we look ahead in the timeline. So give you that early heads up there so you know what to expect. But right now, let's go ahead and see our current situation while we're on. The circulation here right now, we're getting a gate-to-gate of about 117 miles an hour, but again, could tighten back up here in toward the Panhandle of Texas, as we have 3 tornado warnings in play right now. We have Armstrong and Randall, a couple for that county region, 5:30 on one polygon, 5:45 on the second, and then Armstrong and Carson until 6. And these are Eastern time, so make sure I convert because we're talking about areas in Central time. That's very important. So we're talking about 4:30 Central time for Armstrong and Randall. One of those polygons, we're in fact talking about the polygon here toward the west per se, the one with the PDS warning going off toward Carson. That is the one that goes to 4:30, 4:45, and then one to the south here goes until 5. Well, excuse me, I beg your pardon. 4:45 on this one, 4:30 on the one to the west, and then this other one here is till 5. So I just want to go ahead and make sure we clarify, so it gets a little confusing in here with these, but we're talking about two areas of rotation really. I see damage at the entrance of a Canyon State Park occurred there in Randall County between 3:55 Central and 4:15 Central. So we're going to keep watching, keep you up to date. Very strong TVS signature within our Doppler algorithms here, as this is a significant circulation. Let's check for debris again. We saw it to the south. It's harder to see right now because we're so close to the radar, but definitely could have something. We'll keep you updated here in the Weather Center. I'll be back by about 5 o'clock Central Time, unless I need to break back in sooner. So we're at 4:28 Central Time, 5:28 Eastern. I know with the time change tonight, that makes things even a little more confusing in some ways, but we're going to be back by 6 o'clock Eastern here on the current time, 5 o'clock Central, with more updates. Of course, the tornado emergencies issue, though, I'll break in much more quickly, as things in that situation are the absolute worst you can really have in the weather enterprise with the urgency you need to get out the warning. So stay tuned, everybody. For now, meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. Meteorologist Casey Cloud back here in the Weather Center at the top of the hour as we continue to watch the situation toward Texas. Going to go and give you that broad perspective again as we continue to watch things here. You do see the tornado watch in play in toward the Panhandle. One of these, we have two others as well that we're watching. This one here, the Eastern Panhandle per se, is where we're most concerned. We have the warnings really concentrated in this area right now, and that highest risk overall. As I'll pop that on, take off the watch here real quick. You can see what I'm talking about. Take off the radar for a second as well as that loads on in. You kind of get the idea. But again, just continuing to watch here. This red area is where our greatest tornado threat looks to be here over the next couple of hours, really the next 2 hours, and then the situation starts to ramp down a little bit, and that's some good news. And even more as we get off toward that yellow zone toward Weatherford, Oklahoma, that threat continues to decrease. Still some severe threat, but not a threat where we need to cover here on a national type story basis. But we did see some damage toward areas there with that one storm that we were tracking a little bit earlier. Unfortunately, of course, it went across the interstate, had some issues there, had some issues as well. So unfortunately, getting some impacts there, but fortunately missing some of the bigger cities like Amarillo, for instance, because we're talking about significant impacts to the few that were impacted here in terms of those communities. But if we had a larger communities impacted, of course, it'd be a much bigger story. But we still have that potential here to some extent in that red area, rural overall. But we still have to be paying attention to this moderate risk zone, this red zone here on the screen as some of these storms enter into some more favorable environment for tornadic action. We'll go ahead and take off some of the other information here right now and put on our Super Space Cape product, and you can kind of see what's happening with that. And you see the tornado parameters really just to the south here. When we get this to combine with the energy, that's where we're more concerned. So around Childress, for instance, we have to really be watching here over the next little bit, even right on the edge. Sometimes you can get some of the worst, so you just have to look at all the different things. Just really right around this red area is where we're most concerned here for a strong destructive tornado to once again emerge, as we do have some tornado warnings in play here. A confirmed tornado earlier 5 miles southwest of Claude, moving northeast at 50. This warning goes till 5:30 Central Time for northern Armstrong, southeastern Carson, southwestern Gray, and northwestern Donley counties. So a tornado confirmed by spotters, baseball-sized hail as well. As we'll go ahead and switch you on over here to that as we go between some of our different products right now. And you'll be able to see the hail track on this. That's some really large hail, indicating about 3 inches in diameter there to the south and west of Claude. So we really are watching that very carefully. You see the winds here earlier to the north. This is an area that we've seen quite a bit of storm action in here today, with some of these reports coming in from about, it looks like 22 Z there. So that gets us to about 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Central. So again, just looking at all our different tools in the toolkit. So we have that one warning we talked about with the confirmed tornado. Another warning to the north here for central Carson and west central Gray. A severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado near the community of Panhandle. Ironically, of course, you're in the Texas Panhandle. This storm moving northeast at 35 miles an hour. Panhandle, White Deer. We're also talking about, it looks like Kings Mill here under this. So just going to be watching the progress of that. Another tornado warning for southwestern Briscoe County until 5:30. This is for a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado 9 miles west of or east of Claytonville, or 11 miles southwest of Silverton, moving northeast at about 40. A tornado ping pong ball size hail possible. That's that third polygon here in the line of polygons. So as we're looking from north to south, we talked about the one in the purple first, the one at the top second. Now we're going down. Third one, that's the one for southwestern Briscoe, radar indicated, which is good. At least we're not getting ground confirmation as the latest information coming in. But let's go ahead and see what else is going on here. And you see that there is a tornado warning for central Floyd County. That goes until 5:15 Central Time in toward that area. So the circulation moving northeast at 40 miles an hour as we do continue to monitor the progress of it here in the Texas Panhandle. Earlier on, multiple photos as you see this report here to the south of Plainview and Hale County. Multiple photos from a storm chaser did indicate a tornado near a wind farm to the east of Hale Center. So again, a tornado outbreak this afternoon. It seems that's what we're likely seeing in terms of this fitting that criteria, unfortunately. Luckily, though, it's not in an urban area overall, but we have to watch for some of these to get closer to cities. I know we're going to be watching the word Pampa here because that's one of the bigger cities included in that moderate risk here. It's not a marginal risk, a moderate risk. We're talking about a 4 out of 5 on the scale. So that's something we don't see very often, and that's what we're covering this like we are. If this was in a more urban area or a wider risk zone, I'd be in front of the camera. We'd be doing cut-ins every half hour for a while. We did that last year a little bit when we didn't have the impact right near us at that point, when we had time to be able to cover the national scale scenario like we're really should here in these type of circumstances. And this situation, though a little different, this isn't a scenario where we have a lot of cities impacted maybe by a significant risk like we did. Believe that was in March of last year. We had Iowa and just quite a few other urban areas that were under the risk there overall. So just kind of go ahead and continue to monitor this. Again, seeing some different things here, like hail reports coming out 2.75 inches in diameter, 1 mile southwest of the community of Panhandle there in Carson County, Texas. Again, we're in the Panhandle of Texas, so that makes things kind of interesting for storm chasers as well, as there's just so many out there here. It's more of a meteorological storm chasing event in some ways, but lives are still being impacted, unfortunately. I know, again, the issue on the interstate, it seems, based on some Twitter reports, also an issue at home. I retweeted it, maybe on a farm, something to that effect there, being impacted as well. So that's just kind of intriguing to see here, unfortunately, on this Saturday, March 13th, 2021. So again, we have a lot of storm chasers here watching this action. You see all the different car icons. It just tells you how nasty of a situation this is. Some of them even streaming video out as well to some different sources. So again, we're going to go ahead and pop on our lightning, I believe, right now. And you'll be able to see some of the different lightning strikes in this region. Of course, that's a threat you always have to watch. But you see these different polygons. Let me go ahead and go over to our other source right now to see the actual velocity mode on things. And luckily, it's not as significant to the north. So let's go ahead and pop one of our modes on right now. You'll see here, we do have some rotation here to the southwest and really south of Lark, southwest of Groom, moving toward I-40. So we're going to have to watch this. But then we have another circulation here near, it looks like, a state road 207 there. The warnings for, it looks like 7 miles southwest of Groom, 8 miles east of Claude. So it's this area right here, I think. But we just have to watch some of the different areas here in the overall favorable environment. We have another rotation here to the southeast of Panhandle. We had the hail, of course, reported. Might see some of this in correlation coefficient. I think you can. The overall scenario pretty nasty here with that. So I just have to always be mindful as we go between some of our different sources here. And you see another rotation here in northern Briscoe County. May need another warning depending on what the Weather Service offices see. And then we have a rotation to the south of Silverton here. We're talking about State Road 207. Watching that, and then in Floyd County here, a circulation as well. It's a little harder to see at some points as we're getting further away from that radar in Amarillo. Watching some storms toward Lubbock as well, just with the dry line situation, you can get this to evolve. Generally, we don't see these risks rise to this type of level out here necessarily, but sometimes you can see it and see a moderate risk here, folks. A 4 out of 5 on the scale. First time we've seen that since maybe, I believe, just thinking back, maybe the Easter event of 2020, that Easter tornado event when we had part of our area, part of South Georgia, in fact, under that moderate risk. We had quite a few tornado emergencies overall as a large zone compared to this, under the threat of some destructive tornadic action. We had big time problems in Mississippi. We had a tornado emergency in the Chattanooga area as well. So that kind of just tells you the scope of things with that. This is a much more isolated, but still very, very robust and dangerous situation. It is a rural area, though, and that's the great news about this here. But we have the logo red. That's our policy generally when we have these moderate risk type scenarios. We'll go ahead and do that when it's for tornadic action. When that moderate risk is for tornadic action, I do need to clarify that. We have had some other moderate risk for other type of threats, maybe damaging wind, but when it's for tornadic action, that means you have the greater potential for strong tornadoes. So this is probably our first tornado-driven moderate risk. That's how I'm thinking about this. That's when we turn our logo red for those type of scenarios on a national scale, because that's when you have your tornadoes you really see in the movies, for instance, that could occur, that some video of might be taken here right now, in fact, out toward these areas in the Texas Panhandle. So, talking about Texas, we're talking about some areas of rotation, pretty strong here. We're going to continue to track things. Let me go ahead and broaden the view out on one of our other sources here. Give me just a moment. We're going to go ahead. I think we're going to do a really large view of things. I know we have the snow, the significant snow toward Colorado. That's a big story that's going to be evolving here as well. So let's go ahead and just see the broad view. You see all these warnings lined up. Those hail indicators. I'll take them off for now. And you see the warm temperatures to North Florida, South Georgia. I know if you're watching from around here, you're wondering what's going on, and no threat right now from severe weather. It's really nice. The players, of course, going on Gator Nationals as well. But we are watching off toward very, very far west. I mean, I don't know how to say it in some ways, but you know what I mean. And that we're talking about storms that are very, very far away here toward the west in the Texas Panhandle and toward West Texas with tornado warnings in play. Looks like a confirmed tornado now here in Briscoe County near Silverton. This is from Emergency Management. So, and we just had another tornado warning pop up here for the accident in toward Floyd County, Texas. This is radar indicated tennis ball size hail even possible as well. It's not what you want to see in toward these spots. But we're watching this accident here. Gonna just get to the next couple hours when we get into this moderate risk zone. There's 4 out of 5 risk. The interstate involved here as well with this. So we have to just watch here in the most favorable zone for severe weather. I mean, we have the area to the south as well. Toward Spur, for instance, with a strong tornado potential. This is why we're really watching this area here in that gold color where that potential is greatest for destructive storms. But eventually, and we may already be seeing this in some regard, and especially later on, you're going to see these storms coalescing to align maybe based on some of our model imagery that we've been looking at here in the Weather Center, and that would be indicative of a situation where it's more straight line winds. As I go ahead and put our wind potential on there, you can kind of see that displaced off to the east a little bit here, and that's what you would expect in this scenario as things get in toward that storm mode, and then eventually becoming a situation where the parameters ramp on down. I mean, you see Oklahoma City here, they're just barely in a marginal 1 out of 5 risk, but the risk in the yellow 2 out of 5, orange 3 out of 5, and then when we really get concerned on a national level, that 4 out of 5 moderate risk here for some severe weather. We are watching here near Pampa, for instance. We have to pay attention toward that community here. And we're going to be watching toward our area as we get toward Wednesday, but not right now. No worries this weekend. You can enjoy your weekend toward North Florida and South Georgia, and that's great news for everybody. But let's go ahead and see that risk while we're on, just to kind of reiterate this, because this is something the Storm Prediction Center is now highlighting as we get toward your Wednesday. A 4 out of 5 risk toward today, of course, toward Texas. But as we get toward your Wednesday, we have to really watch. It's a 15% risk right now, but that can change. Probably will change in later updates. That's what we want you to stay tuned. It's just too early for more details right now here. But Alabama, especially Mississippi, some of the analogs doing some pretty robust severe weather that has occurred with this type of pattern in the past. And we've had some pretty bad days still up in those analogs. So hopefully things ramp down in the models. But right now it looks pretty significant, serious. For sure, we'll look toward our area later on. I'm hoping, cautiously optimistic, but it's definitely not a certainty. In fact, right now, it's really uncertain, again, as I've talked about, but I'm hoping maybe the worst will be off toward our north and west a little bit here with the environment in play, and we won't see it as much toward North Florida and South Georgia, but we'll just wait and see. We're going to probably have some severe weather around at some point with the overall pattern here, so just again, stay tuned. And we'll continue to keep you updated. So back to the overall significant situation in Texas right now. We have 5 tornado warning polygons in play here. We're going to continue to watch everything. I'll be back in about 15 minutes with more information, so stick with me. Right now, Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center, signing off as we keep you up to date. Meteorologist Casey Cloud back here in the Weather Center at the bottom of the hour as we continue to watch the situation in the Texas Panhandle. Such a big national story in terms of the meteorological circumstances. Luckily, pretty rural areas, though, that we're talking about, but 2 tornado warnings in that moderate 4 out of 5 risk, that moderate 4 to 5 risk here. As we're looking south of the interstate right now, there in toward the state of Texas, south of I-40, in fact. So again, just continuing to watch this acts and these storms here. 520 confirmed tornado 4 miles to the northeast of Silverton, moving northeast at 35 miles an hour. A damaging tornado there in Briscoe County, Texas, according to the Weather Service in Lubbock, and ping pong ball size hail also there a threat. So, got to really be mindful of what's going on. 3 tornado warnings in all. As we look toward the north here, you see one for Armstrong and Donnelly counties. This is until 6 o'clock. Here with a radar indication of a tornado. It looks like 17 miles west of Bryce or 20 miles north of Silverton. So going to continue to watch that as it moves off toward the northeast at 30. Another storm toward the south here. We're talking about a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado 7 miles northwest of, it looks like Dirty there, or 9 miles east there of another one of the communities in that Panhandle region. And that kind of goes to the point. A lot of these aren't really going to be hidden towns, kind of like in Kansas, for instance, where you have a lot of sparsely populated areas overall, but some cities you have that concentrated area, and if a tornado were to hit that, then you would have some problems, obviously. Another storm here in eastern Floyd, western Motley County, that zone moving off toward the northeast at about 40 miles per hour. So I'm going to continue to watch this action very carefully here. And right now, luckily, no significant tornadoes may be occurring based on the latest information, but things can change rather quickly here. So we're going to at least stick with this until the top of the hour with another update then, as we'll evaluate at that point if we need to continue the coverage or not. We may just go ahead and go off and then to see if a tornado emergency situation arises. But with that, a moderate risk zone, we want to at least give it 30 more minutes to see how these storms kind of move a little east. But sometimes you can get these storms to evolve here in the overall scenario with the dry line and be pretty potent when they first form. And then you watch later on and maybe you don't see that potency sometimes. Sometimes you will maybe, but you have to just continue to watch the situation as it does evolve. I know one circulation looks like it might be getting a little bit stronger. We'll pop that up to the south and west, it looks like here, of areas there around Clarendon, for instance. So around Clarendon in toward this area, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, in Donnelly County, moving from Armstrong in Donnelly. You see the circulation here on one of our radars, and we have a higher resolution radar. I'll go ahead and get that ready as well. We can kind of see maybe the pixels a little bit better on that. You can kind of isolate things here just a tad better, and you'll be able to see what is happening with this circulation here. And right now, not too close together, but if we were to get these pixels to come together, I know we saw this some earlier, 76, 77 one way, 40 the other way. If we could get those to come together, then we'd have problems, unfortunately, as we might have a tornado really evolving here in toward this area as part of the Amarillo National Weather Service jurisdiction. So again, we're going to continue to watch that toward the south, north of Silverton. You see some stronger winds, 75 showing up. We had a confirmed tornado here a little bit earlier on, according to emergency management. Maybe some lowering in this area right here. I'll check my other radar because sometimes it can kind of give us a better idea on the broad nature of the debris. And I don't really see it too much on there, but it could be something. We've had ground confirmation, so you have to just be really cautious, really careful, of course. So we're going to just continue to watch things. Let's go back over toward a more broad perspective, and you do see here south of I-40, east of I-27. Again, some of this action earlier, we did have a tornado crossing, it seems, I-27 out there into Texas. Pretty rural zone overall, really rural as you can see on the mapping, but unfortunately did have some issues there on that interstate, as you always just have to be very cognizant here of these scenarios. So let me go ahead now and go over toward another viewpoint here. We'll go ahead and broaden it out a little bit as we have several thunderstorm warnings to the south, but we have that tornadic action really clustered toward the north here with the parameters. In fact, I'll go ahead and show you this here As we switch views a little bit around, you see the tornado parameters to the north. You see the storm chasers cluster to the north as well, and you have more of a damaging wind threat to the south. And we're not really seeing necessarily the storms tap into the overall parameters as we look down there for tornadic acts, and you see one of the grand view of things, most part, things stay into the north. So that's good, but we'll still watch that slight risk goes all the way to the Mexico border. But the big risk again is in that red zone. That's where our concentrated risk is for large tornadic acts, and that's why we're concerned bringing you the special coverage of the scenario on this Saturday. And we'll continue to watch this up toward the west. I know I keep repeating it, but since we're on, I just want to repeat it again if anybody's watching, because we need to pay attention toward the southeast later on with some of the overall scenarios. You see the edge of the risk there today, but we're going to be watching toward the southeast as we get toward next week for a robust severe threat to potentially evolve. Maybe a severe weather outbreak, but it's too early to go that far and call it that. Is there still things that have to come into play, models have to come together. But right now it looks like Wednesday going to have some type of severe threat toward Alabama, toward Mississippi, toward Louisiana, Arkansas, maybe to the north as well. But going to watch to see how that translates closer to our area. It's uncertain at this point. Maybe early on Thursday seeing some of that action. But again, you got to just stay tuned. It's too early for more details, for specific details here on what is happening. So we'll continue to give you the very latest here on everything that's happening, of course, out toward Texas as we go back over toward that area now. You see all the different warnings in play. We're looking to the southeast of Amarillo, the east of Lubbock. You see the enhanced risk in the orange, the greater concern. First time we've had a moderate risk there in that red for a tornado-driven potential. So that's why we're more concerned. You don't see that often, a tornado-driven risk here with that moderate threat in play, a 4 out of 5 on the scale. So I just have to be really cautious here in this red zone, but hopefully we've already seen some of the worst, if not the worst, that the storms are going to offer today when they first got going, as you'll sometimes see off a little toward the west here, as again near I-27, we did have some big time problems, but again, those were mitigated some because we're in such a rural zone. I mean, if this would have went around I-27 in Amarillo, we'd have been talking about a very, very different situation. I do believe we would have had a really bad, very bad scenario overall. So you just always have to continue to watch things. Luckily, Amarillo lucking out today. It looked like we thought they might, based on the risk being a little to the east and a little to the south there, as you can kind of see on the mapping. But you just never know. You just never know what can happen. Luckily, they lucked out. But again, you just have to watch these areas of spin. We'll go back over to our other computer system right now and see some of this here. You see some of the different warnings in play, but let's go ahead and go over to those areas of spin right now. And you see 3 tornado warnings there, the one up toward the north. It looks like for parts of Armstrong and Donley counties in the Panhandle of Texas until 6 o'clock Central. Of course, at 7 o'clock Eastern, but of course, you have to factor in the time change, as some people already setting their clocks ahead, of course, and then we're talking about 7 Central, 8 Eastern. It's a little confusing there, but that's just a good reminder to say your clock ahead an hour tonight, as of course we're switching gears with that, as we talked about earlier in the week, as we got you those updates here, those formal updates. We talked about the severe threat evolving ultimately off toward areas here in maybe the Lone Star State as we got toward the weekend, and we're seeing that in some form. And same thing could happen when we're talking about that risk out toward the southeast. In some form, something could happen, but maybe not in the exact precise center of that per se. So just have to continue to watch things. The 1 tornado warning there to the north, again, those 6 Central. The 2nd tornado warning now, a radar indicated one, so that purple polygon indicated a confirmed tornado earlier, but now radar indicated this warning going until 5:45. It's a thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado 14 miles north of the Caprock Canyon State Park, moving northeast at 45. I know we had some issues at a state park earlier in toward this region as well, so it's important to be mindful of that potential here too when you're getting, at least in the general vicinity, that's could be one of the reasons people were out there on the roads. Unfortunately, maybe they didn't get the word about this type of threat, so they got to always be mindful New tornado warning is coming out for east central Floyd, northwestern Motley until 6:15 central, and that's for hail up to 2 inches of diameter as well. With the other acts in here expiring with this at 5:45, the warning. This is for eastern Floyd, western Motley. So we'll continue to watch, continue to track. We're back at the top of the hour with more information, folks. We'll see you in about 19-20 minutes or so with more details on what is happening here in this weather picture. We'll reevaluate then and see if we need to keep the stream going. But of course, you can always go to cloudweather.com/radar for an interactive look at things and see where some of this action's getting going as we continue to watch here a tornado outbreak scenario, it seems, in the Lone Star State, Panhandle on this Saturday. We'll see you at the top of the hour. Meteorologist Casey Cloud back here at the top of the hour as we're going between some of our different sources. I know we're looking back at some of the accident earlier right now. You can see what was happening with the radar imagery about 2.5 hours ago or so as we were tracking this accident near I-27. But I'll go ahead and put this on the current mode. And you see 2 tornado warnings in play as we look, one toward Donley County, one toward Motley County. The Donley County one more significant here with a confirmed tornado that was 5 miles southwest of Clarendon. It looks like moving northeast at 40 miles an hour, damaging tornado golf ball size hail. So that's definitely a threat here as we are watching this as we go over to storm relative velocity. You see some rotation here. It looks like near State Road 70 there. Between Howard Wick and Clarendon in Donley County, Texas, in the Texas Panhandle. So just looking for debris. We're going here trying to get some different vantage points on this storm with this severe threat. I know we had a tornado as we were talking about off toward the west. We had several tornadoes here with the reports coming on in today. So definitely just trying to say exactly what's going on in toward the vicinity here. You see right now not really any clear debris signatures, so that's some good news because we are watching some of this action here toward the north, but I believe they're actually talking about 2 severe thunderstorms capable of producing tornadoes. They just updated the statement, and that's what they're saying because they're actually tracking another storm to the south here. The one is near Greenbelt Lake, and the second is 8 miles northwest of Rice. They're moving northeast at 35 miles an hour, so we're watching something down here as well, it looks like. We're going to move it over just a little more, in fact. We're watching it right in here, and that's hard to see if there's an actual debris signature in that vicinity, so we'll just continue to watch some of that action here. That doesn't necessarily look like debris, but it could be. We'll just have to continue to track things here as it is a little bit unclear right now what's going on in that vicinity. You see some different areas of rotation. We're watching some rotation toward Motley County as well. Again, uncertain if there's a debris signature. There could be something in there, but we're kind of looking at the really high resolution mode of things right now. So we'll continue to track that action. But I think unless we see something next couple minutes, we're going to go and wrap up the coverage here soon. We're at 7:03 Eastern, 6:03 Central Time. Right now, we still have that moderate risk zone. Still could have some more tornadic action in it. So we'll go ahead and see that perspective here as we switch on to that GR Earth computer right now. You see right in the center of that moderate risk, we have that tornado warning with the 2 areas of circulation. But as we're getting off further to the east, we're talking more about squall line formation scenarios getting in toward Oklahoma, for instance, as well. So that's some good news in terms of the overall strong tornado threat going down, but still some tornadoes possible. We'll have to watch for sure, but it's not a national type scenario. It doesn't look like. But with that being said, of course, you still never know. In a moderate risk zone, something could still try to evolve and become really significant for a bit. So if that does happen, we'll come back on with the stream. But I do want to just touch on a couple other things here. We have a snow side of the overall scenario as well. So let's switch over to our other mode right now. Again, we're continuing to watch the tornado warning storms in Texas. You see those areas of spin that we'll continue to track. But then we have a wintry side of things as well. Cheyenne, Wyoming, Fort Collins, Colorado, Denver, Colorado. You're going to be seeing a lot of snow, a pretty significant storm. You see as I take off our radar or winter mode, we do have here some of these different warnings on your screen, like in that dark orange color, a blizzard warning where historic and crippling winter storm conditions will significantly impact all of southeast Wyoming and the western Nebraska Panhandle this weekend. So that kind of tells you the story here. We're looking up toward Scotts Bluff, for instance, Cheyenne again, and Wyoming. And then as we get toward parts of Colorado, winter storm warnings in play. I'm going to be watching toward Denver, a pretty big deal. In that pink color, we have some other advisories in play in that blue color as well. So just trying to give you the lay of the land there in terms of the winter weather aspect. But again, we're watching severe storms, and ironically here, we're watching severe storms on a day where we 28 years ago, we were talking about a storm of the century impacting a lot of the eastern part of the country. It was an extremely big deal. That's so interesting there in terms of the meteorological facts. I mean, we had storm surge on the West Florida coast, tornadoes in Florida, crippling winter storm on areas there toward the north. So it's something that's definitely interesting to talk about. But again, tornado warnings in Texas. We're still watching. We're still concerned. If you have relatives out there, then you still need to watch their local affiliates. It's very important. This is not an all clear by any stretch of the imagination, but right now the situation doesn't necessarily rise to a national level coverage. But as I say that, we are watching a circulation increase in strength here. It looks like near State Road 70. So let's go ahead and watch another frame or two of this before we go ahead and try to wrap this up, as we are getting some winds now in that 100-mile-an-hour range, and that is a little more significant here as we get near State Road 70. So let me go ahead and check our debris mode to see if we're getting anything on here, and we're not really seeing anything right now, but we just have to be mindful as things start to ramp up a little. You can see it around Clarendon a little bit there, but then you start to see that gate to gate real tight, especially on that last frame here. So we're just going to continue to look. That's 100-mile-an-hour winds. And then this right here is indicative of winds closer to about, it looks like 90. So we'll see if this continues to go down. Hopefully that was just one little ramp up within all of that. We just have to be mindful here that we could get another debris dropout like we saw earlier. I'll go ahead and kind of broaden this back out for everybody. In fact, and I want to put this into our loop mode. I was getting this ready for you guys earlier. I'll zoom in just a little so you can see those cities in here, but you just kind of want to see what's been transpiring here today over the last few hours or so. You'll be able to see what I'm talking about here. You see some of the action going off toward the north, of course, and some of the thunderstorm warnings more toward the south. I'll move this up a little more so you see some of the action further up in the Panhandle. But again, continuing to just watch how things have evolved here on this Saturday. All these different polygons. When you have a pink polygon, talking about a confirmed tornado scenario. Red is more in that radar indicated mode we're talking about. So generally the purples are more serious than the red polygons, but you still, whenever you're under a tornado warning, you got to get inside. You got to get away from windows. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. So we're still watching that storm here in Donley County, Texas. As we zoom back in, we'll go ahead and look here at the high resolution mode. Right now we're getting winds here in that 70 to 90-mile-an-hour range, it looks like. So I just have to continue to be mindful here as we look at some of our different color tables. We'll look here at some of our other information as well as they broaden that view out. We're not seeing maybe upscale growth being sown here, but we'll just have to continue to monitor the progress of things. As we look back, rainfall, of course, seeing quite a bit of that here with this, seeing some hail potential as well as we put some of that information back on the screen here as well. So I know it's a busy day in terms of events in North Florida today, and this weekend, this whole last several days, I mean, with, of course, Gator Nationals, with the event there, the Players Golf Tournament at Ponte Vedra, and then we, of course, even had the Bradford County Fair where I'm at in Stark here in toward North Central Florida. So again, just continuing to watch things very carefully. We're continuing to give you the latest information on things. Let's look at this again. This circulation, if it were to hold together, it's a pretty rural area for a while, but eventually toward areas maybe around Allen, Reed, or McLean. So we'll just have to see how things track with this here. Again, pretty tight, but also pretty close. So hopefully we're not talking about maybe a large tornado trying to get going, but still can be damaging for these folks. It's still important to watch the local stations in this area for sure. We'll wait one more frame here of our Doppler to see what's going on. Make sure this doesn't ramp up into a particularly dangerous situation, tornado emergency scenario. But you see it was maybe a little stronger on the frame before versus the current frame, and hopefully that weakening trend continues, but there's still a moderate risk in play, of course. So you have to be mindful of that, of course, as we are tracking things here near Howard Wick, the community in Donley County, Texas, off the Amarillo radar. We have 2 warnings in play, one down toward Motley County here. And in fact, I think we just got a new scan in, and you see not much down there. And then up to the north, Right now, at least, things look a little bit better. Of course, though, check in with the Weather Service offices, have those weather radios on hand. If you're in this area, check with the local TV stations now. But this is not a situation that's rising to that national level of coverage at the moment here. But we'll continue to track things. If there's a tornado emergency, we'll break back in. But that's probably the only reason at this point we would break back in. If something else breaks that I need to let you know about, we'll go over to Twitter and just tweet something out there as well. We did have a tornado on the ground there earlier in Donnelly County, 11 miles west-southwest of Clarendon. So seeing that at 5:39. But right now, things not as tight, but still could have a tornado on the ground. Can't rule that out. And you just have to be mindful here of how things have gone. A busy day in the Texas Panhandle, not over yet, but we're wrapping up our covers. Thanks so much for tuning in. Meteorologist Casey Clyde here in the Weather Center. Of course, our big story next week will be that severe potential as it starts to encroach upon the southeast, really gets going here in the southeast, in fact. And we'll be giving you those updates here, talking about Monday morning, of course, at the very latest. I'll see you then on our different platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and in that instance, we'll be talking about being on cloudsweather.com, the homepage as well, where you can get that interactive radar at cloudsweather.com/radar. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night.